We are launch. We are go. I'm leaving tomorrow night to drive to Dallas to begin the occupation of the private, run-for-profit Federal Reserve main bank for a 5-state area. It kicks off officially Friday evening, 6 o'clock in Dallas. People are going to be camping out there, staying there, focusing on the monopoly capitalists who want to bring collectivism to our society. People are going to stay there after I leave. I'm then going to go to Houston on Saturday, San Antonio on Sunday. And then as the people mass in Dallas, I will return, as MacArthur said. So this is very, very exciting. I'll talk about it later in the transmission with an icon of liberty, G. Edward Griffin, author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, who's been fighting the private Federal Reserve banking cartel for close to 50 years. We're going to be talking to him about how important it is to not just protest capitalism, which is the opposite of the globalists, but to actually protest their monopoly system. That is coming up in the second half of the news tonight, so stay with us. But first, let's get into the news here. Well, Darrell Issa, the congressman, has told Eric Holder, admit you knew. Admit you lied, because now they've got the emails, the witnesses that Holder was running the ATF, the FBI, the DEA, and 4 other agencies in not only ATF ordering gun shops to sell guns, but 2 ATF agents that were coming in and selling them to Mexican drug cartels. And we'll give you the rest of the story on that in a moment. Now, a top CBS News reporter says the White House screamed and swore at her over Fast and Furious, and that they're actually panicking over the fact that this could bring down this mafia White House. Now, let me give you the rest of the story dealing with this. Sully Castile, who's in federal prison for selling a couple shotguns, he's a former DEA agent, retired school teacher. They set him up. 6 years ago on my show, he told me that Sinaloa was allowed to ship drugs in the United States, and that Los Zetas, that was trained at Fort Benning, Georgia, Mexican commandos, were going to have a fake defection to the drug cartels, but really it was a covert secret war against other cartels not laundering their money through the proper Mexican and U.S. banks. These YouTube videos are all posted. People have seen them. We covered it live on the radio at the time. And so that's how I knew 2.5 years ago when Holder, the Attorney General, started demonizing the Second Amendment and saying we've got to restrict gun ownership because of the problems in Mexico. I knew from Sully and others that they were already, even before Obama got in office, shipping guns into Mexico and drugs back in. Now in federal court, and it's in Texas papers. We're going to show you some of these articles. El Paso Times, Houston Chronicle. It's in the Hawaiian papers. It's in the Chicago Tribune. Here are some of the headlines. Operation Fast and Furious is just the tip of the iceberg. There's the head of the Sinaloa cartel, number 2 in command, but the head of the U.S. operation. And the feds have now come into court and said, it's true, he worked for us. National security has been declared. Here it is from over a month ago. Documents. Fed allegedly allowed Sinaloa cartel to move cocaine to the U.S. for information. That's now since been confirmed in federal court. The feds have declared national security. So the Sinaloa was hired to knock out competition. They were laundering their money through the proper banks. Here's another one. Taxpayers paid for Fast and Furious plan to arm Sinaloa drug cartel. So again, it's not just guns directly shipped by ATF to Sinaloa. Sinaloa has been confirmed to be allowed, they're the main cartel along the Texas and Mexico border, to bring in around half of the $500 billion a year in drug money. The rest of the story is this is like Iran-Contra, with the Reagan administration shipping guns down to Central and South America to drug cartels to knock out their competition and then ship the cocaine into the U.S. Business has always stayed the same. And that's why Issa, in this article, if you actually read the quotes out of Politico from him as the chairman up there today speaking, he said, let me give you a chance, Holder, to come back. We know you made a mistake saying you didn't authorize and command this. Tell us you didn't know everything. It's okay. but you've been caught in perjury. Clarify this. He's not trying to catch him. He's just trying to score some political points. Because if it all comes out, it's going to be discovered. This was happening during the Bush administration as well. Obama went one further, blaming the Second Amendment to try to disarm the American would-be slaves. But that's, I mean, read the quote here. You can go to the end of the article in Politico. This is Issa speaking. This is a man who carefully, if he doesn't like the question, answers it in the way he wants to, he said. He has every obligation to say, I may not have known about all the details, but of course I knew about Fast and Furious because I was briefed somewhat on it weekly because they have all the briefing minutes. He needs to come forward and at least admit that because right now he has said it's untrue and he needs to clarify before the committee. So they're giving him a way out. Look, the memos are all out. They're public. It's in federal filings. We're running the drugs in here. Running the guns in. Come on, come out and say, look, we got to do something if you don't come out and give us some good bull. This goes back to Bush. Help us cover this up. And instead, Holder's going, no, you're all involved. I'm not saying jack crap. You're not going to get political points, Issa. Go ahead and bring it all out. Bring the whole system down. And that, my friends, is the rest of the story on that issue, and that is Fast and Furious. Let's shift gears into Occupy Wall Street movement, started by great grassroots people, but since completely and totally hijacked by the White House. That's now admitted that the big unions and Move On are all involved in it. The NYPD, the mafia that runs New York, is whining right now that there's a hefty price tag of millions of dollars. It's been so expensive to break people's arms and crack peaceful protesters over the heads who dare protest Wall Street in some nebulous way. But wait, I heard this a week ago and thought that's impossible. That's not true. But one of my crew, Marcos, actually brought me the screenshot from jpmorganchase.com where they actually gave $4.6 million the day before the Occupy Wall Street movement was launched to them basically as a payoff. And, of course, we launched a Protest the Fed movement a few months ago, and that ended up being a national story because the protesters that went out there in New York, even though it was just a few hundred of them, had already been surveilled on and reported on by the NYPD, and they admitted, yeah, we watch people that protest the Fed, their paymasters. Now, Obama's trying to co-opt the Occupy Wall Street movement. The people on the ground are great. We've got reporters up there, Rob Jacobson and others. But the media, the dominant corporate dying dinosaur media, but it's still dominant, kind of like a dead elephant in your living room, rotting everywhere. It's dominating your house. They are sitting there giving attention to the George Soros people, acting like all of Occupy Wall Street just hates free market, anybody that has a dollar more than them and wants socialism and this whole list of demands of free education, all these imaginary pipe dreams and more taxes to pay the bankers' bailout money. But there's a report in Reuters that Wall Street cash has now shifted from Romney to Obama. They own both political parties, but they always shift. You know, Mo McCain's not going to win, so they gave 4 or 5 times the money, depending on which bank it was, to Obama. Well, now in a real sign that Obama is in deep, deep doo-doo, Wall Street cash shifts to Romney from Obama 10-1. And this article goes over all of it. About a quarter of the $18 million that has been raised is coming directly from Wall Street on that front. And so meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Meanwhile, our report is up on Drudge Report today. Why are Occupy Wall Street protesters repeating White House talking points? And then the article basically goes over that information. Continuing with this, Ron Paul tried to get a full audit, and he passed it in the House. It was killed in the Senate. So the Senate passed a partial, paltry, really ceremonial audit. And Ron Paul says that it's only ceremonial, but it still allows him to grill Bernanke and others and have them try to whitewash things and not telling where the trillions went, so it's a step in the right direction. Remember when Ron Paul was first in Congress decades ago, he was unable to get one co-sponsor to audit the Fed, but now he was able to pass a good bill through the House, but it was killed in the Senate. So that is a historical move in the right direction. Announced job cuts have risen 212%, and most of the big green jobs were just payoffs to Democratic Party executives. That's now been admitted, including big, quote, test green office parks have now basically laid off their employees. And so it's a 212% increase in job layoffs from a year ago, but still the globalists are telling us that they have basically fixed the economy for us. One more article I wanted to get to is the fact that 11%, I saw the other day, of Texans have an arrest warrant out for them. 11%. And I've seen reports in Lago Vista outside Austin, where I live, and other parts of the country, where if you aren't wearing a seatbelt, they arrest you and take you to jail, even though the statute wasn't written for that. Or if you're speeding, you now go to jail because they somehow get more fines. And I saw an article out of Fox News where it says, auto owners beware, D.C. cops throw drivers in jail for expired tags. AAA cries foul. And it goes on to say their favorite is women with children, because then the CPS gets to grab them. And women driving kids to school or whatever, even if your tags are a few days out, they arrest you and seize your children and then try to keep them. So the government is literally hunting you. And a lot of people out there can't even pay for the tags anymore. They're bankrupt. Their whole world's falling down. They're trying not to be homeless. It doesn't matter. All over the country, not just D.C., they find one thing. You're going to jail, and they're taking your kids, because this is literal slavery. The government ships the drugs in. Your kids are dumb enough to use them. They put them in the private prisons owned by big drug cartels that launder their money through major banks. That's come out. It's incredible. Now, we're going to be occupying the real enemy. We're going to be going up against the actual globalists, the enemies of our republic, not some vague attack on people that are part of the free market that these monopoly capitalists are actually enemies of. And we're going to come back with G. Edward Griffin breaking all of this down. But I wanted to go to break with a clip we played a few nights ago of an interview or a question that Luke Radowski of We Are Change was able to ask the man that's worth over $200 million, who says capitalism is the problem. Gee, Michael, why couldn't you make your films in Russia or China? Why couldn't you make them in Venezuela under Hugo Chavez? You know, America's not perfect, but freedom is what produced the culture and the money for you to make $200 million. The truth is, you know exactly what's going on. Your job is with Goldman Sachs and the big banks that finance the fake green movement, the carbon taxes, the austerity, all of it. You know what your mission is. We're going to expose that with G. Edward Griffin coming up. So here's that clip.
Michael, what do you think about ending the Federal Reserve banking system, the private banking system?
I think there's a larger issue. There's a larger issue to deal with.
And the Fed, it's a private bank.
And capitalism. That's the problem. Capitalism. Capitalism has to go.
Now, we're going to be occupying the real enemy. We're going to be going up against the actual globalists, the enemies of our republic, not some vague attack on people that are part of the free market that these monopoly capitalists are actually enemies of. We are back. It's InfoWars Nightly News, and we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. We're going to interview G. Edward Griffin, and then I'm going to continue to interview him after the show and air that on Friday night, because Aaron Dykes is going to be sitting here hosting InfoWars Nightly News, weeknights, 7 p.m. Central, at prisonplanet.tv, because I'm going to be up in Dallas kicking off the Occupy the Fed movement. So we'll air the second part of this interview with G. Edward Griffin coming up on InfoWars Nightly News.